Good morning, Year 8, and we are on to lesson number 14. So this is week 4, lesson 2 of week 4. So it's actually lesson number 14. We're looking at leaves. So your starter activity today is to rack your brains of how to label a plant cell. So I've given you the keywords here to help you a little bit. I want you to draw that in your book and then add on the keywords. See if you can do the ones you know first, and then that'll leave you with the more tricky ones at the very end. Okay, so here is the answers to our starter activity. We've got cell wall on the outside for structure. You've got cell membrane to allow things in and out of the cell. You've got the cytoplasm where the cell chemical reactions take place. The nucleus is where the cell is controlled, so the DNA is there to control all the chemical reactions and activities of the cell. We have our green chloroplast there that contains the pigment chlorophyll that is used in photosynthesis. And finally, we have our large vacuole there where our sap and our food storage is contained for later activities in the cell. Had to describe this leaf, what words would you use? Write down as many words as you can think of to describe a leaf. You should have come up with things like green, shiny, veins, they're smooth on top, that protects them from losing too much water. Very thin, very flat, large, wide, they're rougher underneath. So add to your list anything that you might have missed off. Okay, so we know what the outside of a leaf looks like. Now we need to have a look at what the inside of a leaf looks like. So imagine you are cutting through the leaf sideways. You will then be able to see all the internal structures as shown in this diagram. Okay, so what I want you to do to start off, we are looking at the structures inside a leaf, so therefore we need a diagram of the structure of a leaf. So I want you to copy out this diagram. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not looking for a Rembrandt or a Van Gogh. So just a very rough diagram of this picture, and then we're going to label it as we go through each slide. Off you go. Okay, so the next thing we are going to add to our diagram is the Palisades cells. This is the layer of cells. They are long, elongated, quite rectangular shaped cells just below that waxy cuticle. And these are the sites of photosynthesis. Obviously, they are at the top of the leaf to allow them to get as much sunlight as possible. So you should now have on your diagram the waxy cuticle at the top and then the Palisades cells below. If we take a brief look inside our Palisade cells, we will see that they are absolutely jam-packed with chloroplasts. This is the site of photosynthesis. They are green in colour, so they contain that green pigment we talked about before, chlorophyll. So this enables them to take in as much energy as possible from the sun. Using the chlorophyll, it is converting the carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. Any part on the plant that is green is able to photosynthesize. So that would apply to the stems and the shoots as well. So any area that is green is able to photosynthesize because they contain chloroplasts, which, as you can see from the diagram, contain the pigment chlorophyll. Quick think, how does water get into a plant? Write it down. So you probably will guess that water enters the plant via the root. As you can see from this photograph, that root is covered in tiny, tiny little hairs. If we zoom in into the microscope picture, you can see the tiny root hairs sticking out from the base of the root. If we zoom in even closer and look at the right hand side picture, that is one single root hair cell. You can see the structure poking out the side. That gives it a very large surface area to enable it to be in contact with as much of the soil as possible, therefore absorbing as much water as possible. Once the water is inside the hair cell, it diffuses into the xylem cells. So if you look at the microscope, you can see there is almost like a tube-like structure running the whole way through this image. That carries the water like a straw right up through the plant to all the parts of the plant, all the leaves, and then eventually evaporates out the top of the tree. As it evaporates, exactly like a straw, that will suck up more and more water from the root via the root hair and then via the root hair cell. So write down how water gets into the plant. So we now know how water gets into a plant. We also know how sunlight gets into the plant. But how does that carbon dioxide get into the plant? How does the carbon dioxide get in and then obviously the oxygen get back out? So how does carbon dioxide get into the plant? The carbon dioxide diffuses from the air into the plant via what we call stomata. These are tiny, tiny little holes on the underside of the leaf. So if we look at this picture here, if we start from the left-hand side, so this is exactly like your picture, your diagram. This is the stoma. So a stoma is one hole. If we have lots of holes, as in the right-hand side picture, we call them stomata. So this stoma is a little hole, it's a gateway into the inside of the plant. If you look at the photograph on the right hand side, you can see they almost look like little mouths. So there are guard cells that surround the hole that open and close the hole as and when carbon dioxide is required or oxygen is required to be released. They will also shut and open according to how hot it is. So if it's too hot and the plant is using up too much water and it starts to wilt, they will close the holes to obviously keep water inside. Again, if it's a really windy day and the plant is losing lots and lots of moisture through evaporation by the wind, again, those guard cells on the side of the holes on the side of the stoma will close to obviously keep water inside. So I want you to just jot down how carbon dioxide gets into your plant. I also want you to add to your diagram the word stoma at the bottom. So this is the hole that allows different gases in and out of the plant. Here is a close-up picture of what the stoma look like when they're closed and the stoma look like when they are open. So surrounding the hole are the two guard cells. So on your diagram, I would like you to just add, if you can, just by the sides of the stoma onto your diagram, label the guard cells. So you can see that surrounding the stoma are the guard cells that control the opening and the closing of the hole to allow gases in and out of the plant for photosynthesis. So let's just finally complete our diagram of inside a leaf. You should now have the waxy cuticle at the top. You should have that second layer of the vertical Palisades cells. You should have your stoma and your guard cells at the bottom as well. You can now go through and just add some more things. You have large spaces within your cell. They are for the gases to diffuse in and out of the cell. You also have an upper epidermis. This is the same as our skin, so it's like the skin of the cell basically. And then you also have this mesophyll spongy layer at the bottom, which is more spread out to obviously allow the gases to come in through the stoma, past the guard cells, and diffuse their way up to the Palisades cells for maximum photosynthesis. Okay, your job now is to rearrange these words into the chemical reaction for photosynthesis. There are also 2 words that need to be slotted in to the sentence below. Can you explain what materials might be on the left? What are the reactants? What are the products? And then challenge question to you is, why do we say oxygen is a byproduct? Have a go at these questions in your books and pause the video. So, challenge question to our grammar stream and our high flyers. Why might gardeners like plants with variegated leaves? So here are 2 photographs of leaves that are variegated, so quite different to our normal green leaves. Are these better or are they disadvantaged? Do they have a disadvantage compared to other plants in the garden? What do you think? Well done everyone for completing this lesson on a leaf. You now need to go back to show my homework and complete the leaf quiz. Very short quiz on there so that we can see who's taking part and see how you're doing. And if you do want something a little extra, there is also attached a leaf 3D picture for you to do at home. So keep watching this video and you'll see a final task, only if you would like to do something extra. Well done. So an extra little activity, if you are bored at home, you could actually make a cube leaf yourself. So I will be posting out the actual Word document. So if you have a printer, you could actually print this out and make it. Or equally, you could pause a video and try and cut this out yourselves. So you need basically 4 squares in a row with 2 squares either side, and then you can glue or sellotape it together. You will then be drawing or printing out the diagram that you've got in your books, colouring it in and making it into a 3D structure of inside a cell. Can you find the Palisades cells? Can you find the guard cells, the stomata and the waxy cuticle? Or have you drawn them? Enjoy your activity.